Morning, everybody. Very nice to see you post Thanksgiving, but still the Thanksgiving weekend, and we're going to share it with Golden Goddess. Golden Goddess is a cliff tea, comes from the Wuyi Mountains. We're in the midst of this 9-week series. This is week 8 with Golden Goddess. We'll finish off next week with Golden Resurrection. What a pleasurable week. Pleasurable set of weeks, I should say. I've talked about a lot of things throughout these 8 weeks, and for the most part, they've been really upbeat, really nice and pleasant and interesting and new. Now, this morning, I'm thinking of starting off with an ugly name. And it sounds good, but when you think about who it is, you'll understand what I mean.
Will you send me a note?
Robert Fortune. Robert Fortune was a Scottish/British thief. What did he steal? He stole TIP from the Chinese. Where did he steal from? The Wuyi Mountains. So Wuyi's been involved in a lot of things. And this theft occurred in the 1840s. He visited in secret 3 times, dressed as a Chinese person with Chinese servants. And the last time he stole cuttings, he either kidnapped or convinced 10 workers to come with him. And they went to India. Now, we've been through 7 full weeks of the complexities of Wuyi tea. Actually, the first week we started out with Fujin. So those of you who are very technical will say 6 consecutive weeks, and that would be accurate. So do you think when you go in and you grab 10 workers, and these weren't 10 factory owners, these were 10 workers, you grab a bunch of cuttings, you sail to India, and you think you're going to recreate what there is in the Wuyi Mountains? How many thousands of things are wrong with that thought pattern? Terroir is the first thing that comes to mind. And I'm talking about both physical and cultural. How about knowledge? Yes, you got 10 workers, but you didn't get 10 tea masters. This is why it took 20 or 30 years before they actually had a usable tea crop. And this is why Indian tea doesn't resemble anything of the origin from the Wuyi Mountains. Nothing. It's not cliff tea. It's not even oolong tea by and large, although some parts of Darjeeling make something that are similar to oolong, but it's not of that. So why are we starting with espionage and theft of IP this morning? I want to remind everybody, over the years, we've encountered other tea shops which have attempted to do that here. By and large, we nail everything within first visit. Although there was a mole that wormed her way in here for about 3 months before we finally figured out, oh, wait a minute, this person is the wife of an owner of another tea shop. Oh my God, how did we let that happen? These things happen because we're not very vigilant. And I'm an understudy. The tea master can't do everything. You know, I'm supposed to be doing stuff too, and somehow I wasn't paying attention. So now we're going to move to a closer time frame. when we had our trips, on at least 2 occasions, people on the trips tried to go off path and make separate connections with farmers. Let me tell you why this never works. It never works because A, in their cases, they didn't speak Chinese. B, what farmer is stupid enough to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you tea. Oh, and where's your FDA number? Oh, don't worry, I'll take care of that. Okay. It's even worse today. Why is it harder and worse today? Because the Chinese government last year became enraged at all the charlatans from the West who were trying to approach farmers. Some of them spoke very good Chinese and trying to convince, oh yeah, give me the tea, give me your tea, sell me your tea. That's great. You give money to a farmer. Now, I ask you this, can a farmer just dump the tea into a container, put your address on it and send it here? Well, thanks to tariffs, the answer is no. And thanks to the, what do they call that? The FDA Anti-Terrorism Act that passed in 2004, something like that, which said that by 2021, 2022, all these products have to have an FDA number. So all of those things prevent a farmer from doing that. Nonetheless, we encountered a situation, recent situation, where somebody thought that taking pictures of boxes that we had just received was a good idea. Presumably because they saw who sent it to us. And they probably thought, ah, I have the name and therefore I can go direct. Maybe they thought, maybe they were even smarter. Maybe they have somebody by their side who speaks Chinese, maybe who is Chinese, and can go in there and make a direct pitch. That would be good, except the Chinese government, as I just mentioned, last year at the state level was so enraged at all the people trying to come in and grab tea this way that they made new rules. And they made new rules for the farmers. And the companies that we use, the aggregators, they know who they can send out to and who they can't send out to. Outrageous piece of behavior. And if I had detected it at the time, I would have said so. I only detected that after the fact. And it's just like, you know, that's theft. And that should not happen. And to no use. You can't use any of the information that you took a picture of. And so these are the things I've got to remind everybody. I know people are in love with tea and would like to be in the tea industry. That's no problem. And we're happy to help people understand how to get in that tea industry. And actually in China, we talked to, and the irony of this whole thing is that the picture that they took was a picture of one of our aggregators. So our aggregator would suss out anything right away. And they said, oh my gosh, somebody really did that. And in addition, then they talked about all the new rules that have been promulgated by the Chinese government. So, and they have a new program with many of the aggregators in China and many of the state-run companies that when they're approached by Westerners for new ventures, they say, oh, why don't you talk to these people? And we're on that list of people you should talk to if you're going to start up a new tea business. because we know the rules, we have the connections, and by and large, they don't want to deal with new people because new people don't have solid money, usually. They don't have an understanding of tea. All of you, by the way, could actually qualify right away because you guys have solid understandings of tea. But think of the poor John Q. public out there who thinks they know tea and has no idea. All right, enough said on that. I was really worked up when I detected this situation. I knew I had to talk about it this morning, but now that I've talked about it, I'm feeling really good. I hope you all had great Thanksgivings too. I had a great Thanksgiving, and I saw many of you during the Thanksgiving, and I was thankful and grateful for all your support throughout the year. And shortly, you'll be getting information from me about next year's program. Sorry it's taken so long. That's me. It's not anybody else. I'm just trying to get everything pulled together, but within the next 2 days, you'll all get it. And thank you for those who've already signed up for next year. Really appreciate that. So we have a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces within the shop. Let's talk about Golden Goddess. So Golden Goddess is frequently confused. And it's confused. There's a couple varietals that sometimes end up being called the same thing, but they're not. One of the varietals actually appears to have been discovered, or at least part of the hybrid of it was discovered in the Wuyi Mountains. And it needs a certain elevation. It's really a picky grower. It's got to be over 2,400 feet. The soil has to be acidic at a certain level. But if it gets those conditions, it produces great. Sometimes you'll see a number in China, number 105 for that. And this is what's so confusing about varietals coming out of China, because some have names, some have numbers, some have names that are interchangeable with other names. This is one of those that is interchangeable with other names. And if you don't understand that, you think, oh, I got this tea. And then you bring it here and we look, really, this is this other variety. So the particular one you're getting today did start in the Wuyi Mountains, and it started as an accident. So remember, we've talked about vegetal, tea vegetal varietals that grow wild vegetal varietals. This was one that was discovered probably during Qianlong's reign during the Qing dynasty. So you're going to ask me what years that was. And I'm going to give you approximations because I can't remember. However, I'm really lucky because the one thing I do remember is he reigned for 60 years. So I can say any number, within a relative time period, and it's going to probably be right. So it was around 1680 to 1740, somewhere in that range. So this farmer, by accident, discovered this varietal and then actually hybridized this varietal. And so that seems to have been the start of this. It was later rehybridized. So, okay, now all the scientists, their eyebrows have hit the ceiling. Okay, how do you rehybridize? So just because I didn't use the right scientific word, I thought that by being that long, you would forgive me. So they hybridized again with another varietal. And that's what is mostly on the market today is Golden Goddess. It is confused with a varietal sometimes that comes from Zhejiang and from southern Fujian province that was hybridized also within the last 40 or 50 years. And I think the confusion, I'm not sure what the confusion is, except that the Chinese term, both of them have guanine in them. And so the result is you think you hear guanine, but so many of the varietals have guanine, you know, Tie guanine, Bang guanine, Jin guanine. You have a bunch of guanines. Which one is which? So the characteristic of this golden goddess is it's a picky grower. It is, and you'll taste, and I'm not going to give away taste profile. You'll get that in a minute. But it's something that is really easy to accept. And this is a cliff tea. Does it grow in the middle of the really good area? You have a few farmers that have some in the middle of the great area. But what you're experiencing today is just outside of the middle of the best area of China. But it's really good. And for price point, this thing is great. It's $40 an ounce. So compared to 85, 125, $200 an ounce, this is a real bargain. And you still get characteristics of cliff tea that we all love. So is there anything secret about the processing of it? Not really. The secret part is the terroir. It really isn't the processing itself, because it goes through the normal 20 to 30 steps. And each farmer that handles in a certain way that brings out what they think is best for their particular terroir. In other words, and I'm going to start calling these micro terroirs because they're so relatively small in terms of the area that we might as well call them out really as they are, because you can move a mile away, and if it's on the other side of the mountain, it's going to have a different taste. Even within the mountain, it's so interesting. This week, while I was looking at Golden Goddess, I was looking at some of the other teas that are smack dab right in the middle of the mountain. So you have a varietal that, in quotes, is cinnamon. But there are so many sub-varietals and so many micro terroirs that you have one that's called horse meat. By the way, we got that this year. You have one that's called lamb. You have one that's called, let's see, beef. And these are all humorous terms, and they have to do with the geographical features near where they're grown. And that's it. So my point here is that this tea, while not right smack dab in it, is going to have some other characteristics of a different micro environment or micro terroir. And that's really what I'm referring to. But it's all the same steps. You pick, in this case, one bud and 3 leaves. You wither, you shake, you try and have the 3-7. So the 3-7, remember that is you want 1/3 of the leaf to be red and 2/3 of the leaf or 7/10 of the leaf to be green by the time you're finished shaking. Does this make a difference? And is this really how it goes now that more of this is mechanized? And the answer is, if it's totally crafted, yes, it makes a difference. And that's why you pay thousands of dollars for the totally crafted tea. Every single step is handcrafted. And the 3-7, you can literally see the 3-7. But with most of the cliff teas today, they have some portion of mechanization in them. And so 3-7 doesn't work once you start to mechanize the shaking process. only really works under two circumstances. First off, you have a real tea master who's doing the shaking. And second off, they're just using the traditional methodology. So this has all of those steps: wither, shake, fry, re-wither, re-shake, re-fry, roast, rest, roast, rest, and roast. Gosh, I reduced 26 to 30 steps to 4 sentences. Do we need to know every single step in detail? You don't need to know every single step in detail. I've been through all the steps in aggregate with you. Does the boss and I need to know every single step in detail? It's helpful for us. And the Chinese know that we're not trying to steal the process, and therefore are generally open to showing us what they need. And yet, when we communicate with you, we're just trying to give you the framework, especially during this series, because other things have become important during this series for your appreciation of this tea. You all, if you knew that, okay, it takes some farmers 50 minutes to get that right appearance versus other farmers 80 minutes, does that make a difference to you? Will you remember it? The answer is no. Will we remember? The answer is yes, because we're buying from all these farmers. Oh yeah, you're the one who does 76 minutes. We like the flavor of what you do. So we have to remember that. But no other tea shop owner, unless they've lived in the fields, is going to be able to give you that information. Just won't. They won't know to really pay attention to that information. They know what they like, but they don't know why they like, because they haven't spent that type of time. And that's okay. That's not an issue. It is okay. We just happen to be more precise because we've spent so much more time. All right, let's see how I'm doing. Oh, as usual, running close to the edge here. Let's just get into tasting this, because I'm anxious to have you try this one, because this one is different from any of the others, but it's still good. So it is with great pleasure and great happiness, with post-Thanksgiving gratefulness, with a full belly, to invite the tea master to come and brew with you. Me too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we do golden goddess today. This is from Wuyi Mountains. 6 grams. Okay. Yeah. So I do twice. Okay.
So this is one where the
So-
timing in the Ishin pot is 3 minutes. And as usual, Tea Master will use 200-degree water and heat the inside and the outside of the Ishin pot. And also make sure that the cup is very, very clean and warm. So you can use any water temperature, but it's best to use between 200 and 212. That is in this opening step. When you actually brew, it should be as close to 200 as you can make it. And you notice there's a certain rhythm to how the tea master does this. It's not in a hurry, making sure everything is clean and in good order. Getting the leaves ready, 6 grams. That's what's in your packages. Making sure everything lands in the pot. And then shaking it to warm it up.
It's hot. Huh? It's super hot.很浓，
So it's got a very rich smell.
浓香。
Yeah. Heavy, rich smell. So she's drying 200-degree water. She's drying it in a kettle so that she can control what the pour is.
这要放在下边泡，不是上边，放下。
They keep the pot low so you can control. The higher it is, the more you dissipate. You don't want to dissipate the steam here. You want as hot as possible. And you also lose control of the water. You know, she pours both inside and on at the top. And this is a 3-minute steam. Okay. We have readjustment. Thank you. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about today is a new trend in China. I say new because it's more obvious now. It's not really new. It's a trend to have peasants move from the land into urban areas. And so they're getting incentives to move into apartment buildings, and they're granted strong financial incentives to do that. But as you move off the land, what happens is that means you don't have the same care if you're still a farmer. And in some cases, this means you just stop being a farmer. So this is a trend that in the West, what we did, at least in America, is developed this industrial food complex to take care of that. And so you had fields that instead of being a quarter of an acre were hundreds or thousands of acres. And then they were terraced in such a way that you could use machinery on these acres. China is researching how to do stuff like this. Nonetheless, the Wuyi Mountains present a special challenge, don't they? For those who've been there, you realize you can't easily terrace this location. And the way that the plants are growing, it just doesn't lend itself to that. Hence, what does this mean? It means the availability and the cost is always going to be high for cliff teas. Only one harvest for those that are within the park. You'll never be able, never is a very strong word, isn't it? Because never is the anti-infinity. But we don't know that to be true. It will be what we do know to be true is it'll be a very long time before they're able to totally, if ever, totally mechanize cliff tea. So insofar as the mechanization has some sort of limitation, that tea is always going to be somewhat scarce. Right now, very scarce because we're in the middle of this movement as they're trying to incentivize peasants to go into the small urban areas. Actually, those small urban areas are becoming huge urban areas. So this is the trend in addition to the global warming, in addition to everything else that's happening vis-a-vis Chinese agriculture. Timer's gone off. Now it's a nice steady rhythm. Bijou is using. And what do we have? We have beautiful golden goddess. When you do it, it should be about this color. Nice little goldenness to it. We're gonna enter the quality arena right away. Remember, this is 200-degree tea, therefore we take inhalation. We're gonna look for both the mouthfeel, where's the astringency? We're gonna look for aftertaste. We're gonna look for energetics. So let's do it. No, that's not, I'll do it. You'll do it in a minute. This is so different than what we've had the last few weeks, and yet it's absolutely delicious. You know, that was a horrible quality arena opening statement. Let me back up. You know what? That sounds like I didn't even enter the quality arena at all. So let me tell you instead, I've got astringency on my tongue. I'm taking a note of where it is. I've got an aftertaste. I don't have energetics yet. Now I'm going to focus on aroma and taste. I didn't that previous time. I just made all that stuff up. Now here's the real test. Oh, by chance, it's the same commentary. All right, it's your turn to go ahead and brew with the tea master. Set your timers for 3 minutes. Your batch are labeled number 2, Golden Goddess. And they have 6 grams in them. If you're using a niching pot, 3 minutes. You're using a ceramic, 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So try to achieve a rhythm. You don't have to have the exact same rhythm that Bijou has, but you should have something that looks similar. You notice she's making sure that the pot is heated carefully.
Yeah, we echo 清洁
Cleaning,
清
clean,
洁 and 保持温度
maintaining the temperature.
Yeah. And 看看是否有茶叶在里边
Making sure that there are no tea leaves inside left over from last time because that'll influence the flavor. It's details. They're not hard details, but if you don't do them, you have an effect. She's taking her 6 grams.
茶针茶好
And putting it
茶匙
in the cup,
Yeah.
and not in the cup, in the pot. Shaking it up. Heating the leaves.
闻香
Smelling. the
闻香
leaves.
Yeah.
闻香. Drying 200-degree water.
「这个速度一定要快
So speed should be quick,
fast
but not too quick. Not hasty. It should be quick, but not hasty. pour a little on the outside and start your time.
3.
3 minutes. If you're using the Yixing pot, you use the ceramic, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. If you're using a special Yixing pot, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Yes.
One of the participants asked, Peter asked, did you end up borrowing the wife of the other tea shop owner?
Did I end up doing what?
Borrowing her from the shop?
Ah. So this is a really interesting question. It's a complicated question because we want the shop to be open and available for everybody. And we just require certain behavior when you're in the shop. And so once all of this information became apparent to us, we did have a talk with her, but we didn't bar her from the shop. And actually, the very next time she came, she did come with her husband, who is the owner, who introduced himself as the owner of this other, investor of this other tea shop. And it's an awkward moment sometimes. So the least awkward moment we've ever had is with the owners of Far Leaves. They came up here, they walked in, hey, we own Far Leaves. We've heard that you're an incredible shop. Show us some tea. And that was really easy. We had a flowing conversation about what they do in terms of getting tea, what we do. And it was friendship, and it was driven by curiosity. And there was no underlying economic espionage motive. And that's the key thing for us. We require respect in this shop. And that's it. So you can't steal, and you got to treat everybody nicely. I think that that's about the only 2 rules we have. You can say bad things to me because, you know, I make bad mistakes, but you also got to really respect the Bijou, the tea master. That's it. Those are the rules. Easy. And if you're a tea shop owner, it's best that you let me know right away, because then we can have tea discussion. If you come in here and you ask weird questions, right away, I'm gonna know you're an owner. And I'm gonna call it out. And that's happened before. And everybody has a little laugh about it, and then we move forward. So we don't ban other owners. What we ban is bad behavior. Taking pictures of our inventory, that's called bad behavior. All right, timer has gone off.
Peter adds, and you can't describe a tea as having garlic.
Yeah. Peter said that correctly. If the temptation comes to your mind, well, let's taste a little garlic, then think about going outside and getting rid of that thought before you say anything.
I believe the word sour is also forbidden.
Sour is also forbidden. That's right. Sour is a very bad word in the tea industry. There is one other rule that used to exist, but we've amended it. You recall in the beginning, no crying in the tea shop. But as it turns out, we have amended that. If the tea is causing you to cry because it's so good, that's fine. We accept that. All right.
Jen says there was just a hint, commentary already on this tea. She says there was just a hint of sweet fruit aroma coming from the warmed, dry leaves, though elusive as I tried to identify the fruit.
Sweet fruit aroma from the dried leaves. This is what Jen starts out with. And she says it's an elusive fruit. Love this description. I love the description. And Jen has used good judgment. And the good judgment is, well, I know it's fruity, but I can't tell whether it's a plum or a grape. That's okay. That's perfect because it gets everybody in the mode. And remember, we all use different words for the same smell, same flavor. So just identifying what general category is wonderful. Great start. And this one, I hope you all have your notes out, particularly from the last 4 weeks, because this one is so different from Enlightenment, Chimerical, Genesis, and Phantasmagoria. Very, very different. And yet, while those were all wonderful, this has its own, it carves its own territory. And we'll talk about that in a minute because there's another implication with this. Take your time, there's no rush. Flavor, profile, aftertaste, interjects, these all take time. And I tend to comment really quickly. Why? Because I've got this in my head. I already know scope. And I've tasted so many teas over the years, thousands literally, that I get to conclusions more quickly. And I get to them more quickly because I'm in the tea business. I have to. When I'm out there in the fields, as we taste stuff, there's pressure. What do you think? Okay, I think this. What about this one? Okay, that. But for here, in our inner sanctum, we take our time, as we should, because we're pulling this apart in detail. And we're comparing it to others.
Peter shares, I'm finding a nice deep sense of embodiment, which is still dry.
Love this one. A deep sense of embodiment. And Peter used a word that was very appropriate for this tea. Extremely appropriate. Embodiment. That can mean a lot of things, but in my mind, instantly, I get a picture of what he's talking about. There is, and from my perspective, there is a fullness to this tea. That's part of the embodiment. There is a lot going on with this tea at different levels. That is the embodiment.
Jen says, I also noticed the leading strong roasted aroma from the warm, dry leaves. I expected the tea liquor to be very strong, very astringent, very roasted, but I'm pleasantly surprised by how smooth this tea is.
Another great catch by Jen, because she said, okay, I smelt these dried leaves, there's roast there. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to encounter a lot of roast. No, that is a magic comment because that's exactly how we think of this tea. It throws you off because you think, yeah, okay, we're going to have to work at this. And then when you drink it, wait a minute, I'm not having to work. I'm getting a little bit hints of a little bit of fruit. It's big. It's got embodiment, but it's not hard. It's not, I have to cut through this roast or I have to cut through something else to get at what's in here. This is not this tea, and you're capturing it quite accurately.
Jenny shares, at first the scent was like walking into a farmer's market, and I got a lot of vegetables, specifically leafy greens. But the longer I sat with it, and the more it became fruity, especially specifically apricot and passion fruit. Once I took a sip, it was very fruit forward, the same fruits, and it keeps deepening and developing.
Love this comment. So we go from leafy, vegetal, in the initial whiff of the tea. And then it morphs before we've even started it into, hey, there's some sweetness here, some fruitiness. And then she's able to, this Jenny is able to get apricot and passion fruit. So she's able to dip down and say, for me, I get these specific fruits. These remind me of these specific fruits. Look at the range of where she went. A little bit leafy, vegetal to start out with. It's an aroma. And then, we're almost morphing a little bit. Then we taste. And by the time we taste, we get fruit forward. It's a really interesting tea. And we've always loved this. And we've loved it actually almost as a beginning tea for cliff tea drinkers, because it gives you enough different variety and you're all picking that up. And it's not so difficult that, oh my God, don't ever serve me anything like this again. This is friendly. Yes.
Rob says, I agree with the smoothness. In fact, what astringency there is feels wet on the tongue.
So Rob agrees with the smoothness, very little astringency, and it almost feels like, and I like how he morphs into this from astringency to wet on the tongue. So it's there, but it's buried by the smoothness and wetness of this.
He adds that there's a roastiness and dried plum in flavor, but there's a hint of butteriness in the aftertaste.
Roastiness and dried plum in the flavor with the hint of butteriness in the aftertaste. Wow, there is a ton going on with this tea. So all of you are getting, and I'm glad you're taking the time, because what you're doing is something that's very hard. If you compare it to, say, a Genesis or a Phantasmagoria, it's like, well, wait a minute. Those shouted out things at me right at the very beginning. I hardly had a chance to have a nanosecond before I was assaulted. This one is subtle. This one you're moving through. In that subtleness, it leads with smoothness. It leads fruit forward. Different fruits are being suggested, but apricot, passion fruit, plumminess, it's great. And then Rob says, wait a minute, go off to that aftertaste. You got a butteriness too. You do have a butteriness to this. This lingers. And it lingers. That wetness and the lingering. And that's what gives that, in quotes, embodiment. Love that word. I'm going to use that word all the time. It's a long word too. Peter, you did just great. Give me those long words and I'll use them all the time. We do have a tea called embodiment. Yes. Yeah.
Peter says, after all this series on Wulongs, it's much easier to begin to discern minerality, even when it's at first behind the scenes.
Great comment. And this is exactly the reason we put this tea in this position. Because Peter mentions, yeah, okay, he tried to trick me. There is minerality, but that's afterwards. That's not what it leads with. It leads with all these other things. And then, yeah, there is minerality too. This is really a cliff tea. Love this comment because we wanted you to have that experience of those three. In particular, the chimerical Genesis and Phantasmagoria that are so forward, and then have this mellowness. The other thing I would note is you've used all the terms that are in cliff teas. roastiness, minerality, and then flavor descriptors. Every cliff tea and astringency, every cliff tea has all of these things, but they are in different proportions. And this again is the magic of the shop because it gives you context, it gives you scope. And I don't know whether you agree with me about this is a good beginning cliff tea, but both Bijou and I really like this one. Once you get beyond Golden Buddha, Cinnabar, Gold Thunder, those are true beginning cliff teas. And you identify roasts and all these other things with those teas. This starts the cliff tea subtlety. And yet it's not hard. It just takes time. You've got to give it time. If you hope to get everything in the first minute, none of you got everything in the first minute. You're all getting it over time. And that's the other reason this is great for beginners, because it isn't, you're not at any stage hit over the head with an, oh my God, it's this thing. And that's all you can think in your mind. Yeah.
On energetics, Peter says, it feels like it spreads down, diffuse and deep into my body at the same time, softly, but nicely grounding.
Love this energetics comment by Peter. Diffuse, soft, spreads throughout the body, spreads down. I would add one thing because I get the same thing plus one. And the plus one is that warming. I am so warm in the upper body. It's like, oh my gosh, somebody came in and turned on the thermostat up there. It's cold outside, but boy, oh boy, is it warm in here. Embodiment. Okay. We probably will end a little early today, but there's nothing wrong with that. I really, both Bijou and I really wanted to take you on this journey this way because we're trying to give you language to understand cliff teas. Actually, we're not trying to do anything. We're trying to get you to derive the language, and you are deriving the language and you're understanding it the way we are. We are deeply grateful and that you're so involved with this and that you guys have become so good at identifying flavors and trends and minerality and roast and put them in perspective. This is what the cliff teas are about. Are they hard? Absolutely. Are they the hardest of all the teas to produce? Without a question. Can they be unraveled? Well, you proved not only can they be unraveled, but you can unravel them straight to the end. It's fabulous. All right. This is week 8. I can't believe 8 straight weeks of Wulong. What a tasty adventure. Next week, we're going to end it up with Golden Resurrection. Another under the radar cliff tea that we love. So, your responsibilities this week. Yesterday, I hope you went and got all the Black Friday deals and are feeling good about that. On Monday, you've got Cyber Monday, so what you got to do is think about all the holiday gifts you got to get. And remembering, don't spend all your money because you got tea spending to do this upcoming month as well. So, oh, and actually I put this in the wrong order. Stay healthy. That's the number one thing. Here I am talking about it again. Stay healthy this week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Take care, everybody. Bye.